It was a quiet night, the kind where the world seemed to exhale in unison. The highway stretched endlessly ahead of me, bathed in silver by the full moon. I had the radio tuned to some late night station playing soft rock, the hum of the car engine blending with the music. Driving like this was my therapy, just me, the open road, and the occasional rhythm of passing mile markers. I was somewhere between nowhere and nothing when I spotted her. At first, it was just a shadow in the distance, something that didn't belong. As I got closer, I saw her, woman standing at the edge of the road with 2 bags at her feet. She wasn't waving me down, but she looked desperate. Her clothes were disheveled, her hair a mess, and her pale face caught the moonlight in a way that made her look ghostly. I slowed down instinctively, my heart beating a little faster. Picking up strangers wasn't my style, especially not at night on a deserted highway, but something about her felt urgent. Maybe it was the way she stood there, like she didn't know what to do next. I rolled down the window as I stopped. "Hey, you okay? Need a ride?" She looked at me, her eyes hollow and tired. For a moment, I thought she might say no, but then she nodded, grabbed her bags, and got in without a word. "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to keep things casual as I pulled back onto the road. "Anywhere," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "As far as you're going." That was unsettling. Running away from home or something. I tried to joke, though it came out awkward. "That's none of your business," she snapped, her tone sharp. That shut me up. I wasn't about to pry into someone's personal problems, but her response left me uneasy. There was something off about her. Beyond the pale skin and the disheveled look, she seemed haunted. I decided right then that I'd drop her at the next police station or gas station. Someone else could help her sort out whatever she was dealing with. The silence in the car was thick. I tried to focus on the road, but my mind kept wandering. Who was she running from? What was in those bags? The occasional glances I stole at her revealed nothing. She stared out the window, clutching her hands tightly in her lap. Then came the light. At first, it was just a distant glow in the rearview mirror, but it quickly grew brighter, closer. A car was speeding up behind us, its headlights glaring like twin suns. It wasn't long before it was tailgating me, flashing its high beams. "What the hell?" I muttered, slowing down slightly to let the car pass. Instead of overtaking me, it pulled alongside. I glanced over and froze. The driver, a man with a wild look in his eyes, was leaning halfway out of his window, shouting something. His face was contorted with anger, veins bulging at his temples. "Get out of the car!" he screamed. "You hear me? Get out of the damn car!" I turned to the woman. "Who is that? What's going on?" Her expression didn't change. "Just keep driving. Keep driving. That guy's nuts." "Who is he?" She finally looked at me, her eyes cold and distant. My husband. My husband. He wants to kill me." "What?" My voice cracked. Panic surged through me. "Call the police." She didn't move. Her calmness was unnerving. "Just drive." The other car swerved closer, bumping into mine. My car jolted, and I gripped the wheel tighter, my palms slick with sweat. The radio had been playing some Fleetwood Mac song, but it might as well have been silence for all I could hear over the pounding of my heart. The man in the other car was yelling again, this time louder. "Get out now, or I swear I'll shoot." I looked at her, desperate. "He has a gun!" "Call the police, damn it." She didn't answer. She just stared ahead, unblinking. Another hard bump from his car sent mine skidding slightly, but I managed to regain control. My instinct screamed at me to stop, to get out, to run. But I couldn't leave her to fend for herself. Could I? Before I could decide, the man rammed me again, harder this time. I had no choice but to slam on the brakes, skidding to a stop on the shoulder. My car groaned in protest, the tires screaming against the asphalt. He stopped too, jumping out of his car with a gun in hand. He was crying now, his chest heaving with each breath as he pointed the weapon at us. "Get out of the car," he shouted, his voice cracking. "Both of you." I raised my hands instinctively, my throat dry. Look, man, I don't know what's going on here, but... Shut up, he barked, then turned his attention to her. Why, Maria? Why would you do this to me? Maria, that was the first time I'd heard her name. She finally moved, stepping out of the car with a strange calmness. You know why, she said softly. You've hurt me for the last time. His sobs grew louder. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. Just come back. Please. Their argument spiraled into something incomprehensible to me, a mess of accusations and apologies. I stayed frozen in my seat, too terrified to move. Then she did something I didn't expect. She forgave him. Just like that. I'll come back, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Put the gun down. He dropped it immediately, collapsing to his knees. She turned to me briefly, her expression unreadable. Then, without a word, she climbed into his car, and they drove off into the night, leaving me alone on the side of the road. I sat there for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. Should I call the police? Report the guy with the gun? But what would I even say? That I picked up a strange woman who turned out to be running from her husband, and then she just went back to him? In the end, I decided to let it go. Neither I nor my car had been harmed, and frankly, I didn't want to get involved any further. As I pulled back onto the highway, the radio crackled back to life, filling the silence with some Eagles song. I turned it off. The hum of the engine was all I needed. One thing was certain. I'd never pick up a stranger again. The rain started as a soft drizzle, barely misting the windshield, but by the time I hit the stretch of highway slicing through the forest, it had turned into a steady downpour. My wipers squeaked rhythmically, struggling to keep up, and the cold coffee in the cup holder had turned bitter. I didn't care. I just needed it to keep me awake. It had been a grueling business trip, and home felt like a distant dream. The gloom of the storm and the monotony of the road were starting to wear on me. My eyelids felt heavier with each mile. Then, through the haze of rain and headlights, I spotted something in the middle of the road. I squinted, easing off the gas. A deer, maybe? No. It was smaller, lying motionless but not completely still. As I got closer, I realized it was a dog. A Labrador, to be precise. Pulling over to the shoulder, I threw on my hazards and stepped out into the rain. The cold stung my face as I approached the dog cautiously. Its golden fur was matted with mud, and its right leg lay at an unnatural angle. No blood, no tire marks, nothing to explain how it had ended up like this. "Hey, buddy," I said softly, crouching a few feet away. The dog lifted its head, its soulful eyes meeting mine. It whined softly, more a pitiful whisper than a cry of pain. A collar. My gaze caught on the tag Jackie. Below the name was a phone number, but I had no signal out here in the middle of nowhere. "All right, Jackie, let's get you some help," I muttered. The dog wagged its tail weakly, its trust surprising me. I slid my arms under it, careful not to jostle its injured leg. It was heavier than I expected but manageable. Jackie nestled against my chest, seemingly grateful. I turned back toward the car, rain soaking through my jacket. That's when I heard it. A deep, guttural growl that froze me in my tracks. From the woods to my left, something massive moved through the underbrush. My heart leapt into my throat as a bear emerged, its hulking form towering over me even at a distance. Its fur was dark and matted, its eyes locked onto me with primal fury. The pieces clicked together in my mind: Jackie's injury, the bear's rage. This wasn't a random encounter. The dog must have crossed paths with the bear and lived to tell the tale. But now, the bear wanted to finish the job. I tightened my grip on Jackie and ran. The woods were my only option. The car was too far, and the bear was too fast. Branches whipped at my face as I barreled into the forest, my boots slipping on the wet leaves. Jackie whimpered in my arms, but I held on tightly. Behind me, the bear's growls grew louder, closer. I didn't dare look back. I focused on running, on keeping my balance. But the rain and the even ground conspired against me. My foot caught on a root, and I went down hard, shielding Jackie as best I could. Pain shot through my knee, but I scrambled to my feet. The bear was there, its massive form looming just yards away. Its eyes flicked from me to Jackie, and I realized with sickening clarity that the dog was its real target. "Stay back," I shouted, my voice cracking. I reached down and grabbed a rock, hurling it at the bear. It bounced off its thick hide, doing nothing but drawing its attention. This was it. My end. Then, a deafening crack split the air. A gunshot. The bear flinched, hesitating, and another shot rang out, this time hitting the ground near its paws. Jet away from them, a man emerged from the trees, rifle in hand. He wore a weathered jacket and boots caked in mud, his face stern and weathered. The bear let out one last growl, before retreating into the shadows of the forest. The man approached cautiously, lowering his rifle as he took in the scene. His eyes landed on Jackie, and his expression softened. "You found my dog," he said, relief flooding his voice. "This is your dog?" I asked, still catching my breath. The man nodded. "Jackie. She must have gotten away when the bear showed up. I've been searching for her all morning." Jackie barked weakly, wagging her tail as the man knelt to stroke her head. "I found her on the road," I explained. "She was hurt, and, Will, the bear wasn't far behind." "You saved her," he said simply. "Thank you." He introduced himself as a local hunter and offered to take Jackie to the vet. Together, we made our way back to the highway, the rain letting up as we reached the edge of the woods. The hunter loaded Jackie into his truck, thanking me again. "You've got guts," he said, tipping his hat. "Most people would have left her there." I nodded, unsure of what to say. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me shaky and exhausted. As the hunter drove off with Jackie, I climbed back into my car, my clothes soaked and my heart still racing. The drive home was quiet, save for the hum of the engine and the faint patter of rain on the windshield. I couldn't stop replaying the events in my mind. The growl, the chase, the bear's teeth just inches away. It wasn't the first time I had accepted an unusual job, but that day, something deep inside me told me I should have thought twice. But, you know how it goes. When the money is good, you don't ask too many questions. My name is Ruben, a truck driver by trade, and this is a story that still feels impossible to believe that I lived through. It all started at a gas station by the side of the road. A guy wearing dark sunglasses and a leather jacket approached me. "I have a load that I need you to take to the border," he said, his voice as cold as the morning air. I didn't ask what it was. He offered me an amount that was hard to turn down. There was just one condition. I must not, under any circumstances, open the back of the truck. The truck had a large freezer in the back, but I didn't bother to check what it was carrying. As the wheels began to turn, the guy repeated the warning. "Don't open the compartment, no matter what happens." I nodded, started the engine, and hit the road, the money already burning a hole in my pocket. The first hour of the trip was peaceful, almost relaxing. The lights of the road were the only thing that illuminated the pitch black night, and the sound of the engine kept me calm. But then, just as the clock struck midnight, everything changed. On a dark and lonely stretch of the road, I saw something at the edge of the highway. I slowed down, and then I saw it clearly. A stumbling figure, injured, with torn clothes stained with blood. It was a man, but his face was pale, almost translucent. As I passed by him, his eyes locked with mine, filled with a desperation that froze my blood. But when I glanced in the rearview mirror, he was gone. I shook my head, trying to shake the image from my mind. "It's just the tiredness, that's all," I told myself. But then, a few kilometers ahead, another figure appeared. This time, a woman, dressed in a white dress, stained with blood, raised her hand as if asking for help. I slammed on the brakes, my heart racing. But when I stopped and turned to look, she was gone. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in the air, in the silence that surrounded me. I kept driving, but my mind wouldn't stop thinking about the warnings from the guy in the leather jacket. What the hell was in the back? The apparitions didn't stop. Spectral figures, all wounded, all with that same expression of horror. One of them even tried to climb into the truck, desperately banging on the driver's door. But when I opened the window, there was nothing, just the cold wind of the night. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Curiosity, mixed with fear, forced me to stop in a desolate stretch of the road. I got out of the truck, my heart pounding in my chest. "Don't do it," I kept repeating, but my hands moved on their own toward the back compartment's door. When I finally opened it, the cold hit me in the face like a slap. The interior light revealed what I should have never seen: bags filled with something. Something that, as I got closer, made me recoil with a strangled scream. They were organs, human, meticulously packaged and preserved in ice. I felt dizzy. The reality hit me like a truck at full speed. At that moment, the spectral figures reappeared, surrounding me, their faces contorted with pain and desperation. Souls in pain, those victims whose organs I'd been unknowingly transporting, all there, demanding justice, or perhaps revenge. I don't remember much of what happened next. The next thing I knew, I was standing by the roadside, the first light of dawn on the horizon, and my truck parked a few meters ahead. I never went back for it. I left everything there. The money, the load, and ran. I ran like I never had in my life, leaving that hell behind. Since then, every time I see a figure by the side of the road, I shudder, fearing it's them, the souls in pain, coming for me. Because one thing is certain, evil can be found in the most unexpected places, and sometimes you carry it without even knowing. It was a cold, windless night on a deserted highway. The moon barely pierced the thick clouds, casting faint, eerie light on the rain-slicked road ahead. I was driving home after a weekend visiting my brother, feeling the itch of fatigue in my shoulders. The radio crackled softly in the background, keeping me company, its static filling the oppressive silence. Suddenly, my headlights caught a glint of metal in the distance. A car, overturned on the shoulder, its undercarriage mangled and smoke curling lazily into the air. My foot instinctively hit the brake, and my heart began to race. I pulled over, cut the engine, and stepped out into the night. The sound of the rain pattering against the asphalt filled my ears as I approached the wreckage. "Hello," I called out, my voice tentative. "Is anyone there?" A faint, panicked voice responded. "Help us. Please." I hurried closer and crouched by the shattered window of the overturned car. Inside, a young woman clutched a small bundle, a baby, no more than a few months old. Her face was pale, streaked with blood, and her voice trembled with desperation. "Are you hurt?" I asked, peering inside. "I think my leg is stuck," she replied, her voice strained. "Please, get my son out first. He's scared, but he's okay." I nodded, trying to stay calm despite the surge of adrenaline pumping through me. I fumbled for my phone, dialing for help, but there was no signal. Of course, out here, miles from the nearest town, I was on my own. "It's okay," I said, more to reassure myself than her. "I'll get you both out." I reached through the shattered window, careful to avoid the jagged glass, and gently took the baby from her arms. The child whimpered, his tiny fists clenching as I cradled him close. "See, it's okay, little guy," I murmured, backing away from the wreckage and placing him safely on the dry grass a few feet away. The woman was crying now, her breath coming in sharp gasps. "Please, don't leave me," she pleaded, her wide eyes locking onto mine. "I'm not leaving," I assured her, returning to the car. I tried the door, but it was jammed. The frame was too twisted to budge. I climbed onto the wreck, the slick metal making it hard to get a grip. Through the shattered driver's side window, I could see her leg pinned under the dashboard. Blood pooled around her ankle. "I'm going to have to pull you out," I said, climbing down to the passenger side. "These might hurt." "Just do it," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I don't care. Just get me out." I grabbed the door frame and braced myself. With all the strength I could muster, I pulled her free. she screamed, the sound ripping through the stillness of the night. But I managed to drag her out and lower her gently onto the ground beside her child. "Thank you," she whispered, clutching her baby as tears rolled down her face. I knelt beside her, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "You're safe now," I said. "I'll get you to the hospital." Suddenly, a soft hiss reached my ears. I turned back to the wreckage just as flames licked up from under the hood. "The car!" I shouted. "It's going to blow." I scrambled to my feet, pulling the woman up with me despite her injured leg. "We have to move." Together, we hobbled away from the wreckage as the flames grew brighter, consuming the vehicle with alarming speed. I half-carried her, her weight bearing down heavily on my shoulder, but adrenaline kept me moving. We barely made it 20 feet when the car exploded, a deafening roar that shook the ground beneath us. Heat washed over my back as shards of metal rained down around us. We collapsed onto the wet grass, panting and trembling. The baby cried, his wails cutting through the night, but the woman held him close, rocking him gently. For a long moment, we just lay there, staring at the burning wreck. The flames illuminated the empty highway, casting long, flickering shadows into the surrounding forest. "Thank you," the woman said finally, her voice hoarse. "You saved us." I nodded, still catching my breath. "Just glad you're okay." "Huh?" We sat in silence for a while, the only sounds the crackling fire and the distant rumble of thunder. Eventually, I helped her up, supporting her weight as we made our way back to my car. As I started the engine and turned us back onto the highway, I couldn't shake the image of the burning wreckage from my mind. It was a sobering reminder of how quickly things could go wrong on that lonely stretch of road. With the rain still falling softly, I glanced in the rearview mirror at the woman and her baby, both safe and sound. In a highway, I murmured to myself, "You never know what might happen."